The Iowa Hawkeyes have their bowl location and their bowl opponent set to go on the gridiron, and we're going to talk about it on the show tonight. Hello and welcome to Iowa Primetime Live. My name is Zach Heine. Thank you for joining me here tonight on the show. You can follow me on social media or on X, at Jack_Heine. You can follow my written work at Hawkeyes Wire. Make that your one-stop shop for everything Iowa athletics with football season heading into the offseason, transfer portal, recruiting, bowl game. Uh, with uh, uh, with both basketball seasons ramping up, a lot of content going up over there at Hawkeyes Wire. Make sure that you're checking that out. And of course, make sure you're following the Boys of College Football at the VOCFB. We're getting into playoff season. There's a lot going on with that. So make sure that you stay tuned here for all of your college football needs throughout the playoff and bowl season and then into the off season as well. This is Iowa Primetime Live. And for the first time in a while, we don't have a game to react to talk about. But we do have a game to preview because Iowa did get their bowl opponent and location. They are going to be sailing down south to Tampa Bay, Florida for a matchup with SEC powerhouse, ? SEC are a really good team from the SEC in the Vanderbilt Commodores. The 10-2 Commodores, the just barely missed the college football playoff Vanderbilt Commodores. This is not your Vanderbilt football team of 10 years ago. This team is really good, and they have a Heisman Trophy finalist officially as that group came out earlier this week. We'll talk about Vanderbilt, what you need to know there. We'll go more in-depth with Vanderbilt as we get a bit closer. Probably next week's show, we'll do a more in-depth preview of Vanderbilt. We're also going to be talking about Iowa's recruiting class because it was signing day last week. Where do they stand there? What does Iowa need to look at in the transfer portal for next year's team? And then we're going to talk about some other Big Ten news. The coaching carousel got a new location added to it yesterday. Some drama in the Big Ten. We'll talk about that a bit later on in the show. It is our call-in show, of course. So let me put that link here in the chat if you want to hop on and talk about anything Iowa football, Big Ten football. I'm definitely free to open it up to whatever you want to chat about. That link is in the chat right now. And we do have a chat already in here from J Ray 3811. Will Iowa go after Underwood and wide receivers from Michigan? I don't think that they will, but you never say never. I just don't think Iowa can afford, especially a Bryce Underwood. I mean, that's probably $4 to $5 million just of your NIL budget on its own, if not more, to him. And I just don't think Iowa can afford that. But we'll talk more about the Michigan situation a bit later on in the show, and maybe any players Iowa could poach from them going forward. The Vanderbilt Commodores in the ReliaQuest Bowl down in Tampa Bay. It's a very interesting matchup for Iowa and a very exciting matchup. New Year's Eve, 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff. So a lot of people are going to be off for the holiday, going to be able to tune in and watch that game. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it's a chance for Iowa to finally break that ranked opponent losing streak. We've been talking about it all year long, and they had chances against Indiana and against Oregon and against USC and just couldn't get the job done. And they're going to have one more chance here to get it done. And I said earlier that I don't care where they get it at, if it's in a bowl game, if it's a conference game, non-conference, 1-point win, 20-point win. I don't care. They just have to get that streak broken. This is your opportunity to do just that against a Vanderbilt team that is going to be playing a lot of its guys. The big question when Iowa got Vanderbilt would they see Diego Pavia? And Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee said that he anticipates Pavia to play in the bowl game along with tight end Eli Stowers, who is also really good. Diego Pavia, officially a Heisman Trophy finalist, by the way, if you missed that, joined by Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza, Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin, and Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. And so Iowa is going to be facing a Heisman Trophy finalist in this bowl game. Diego Pavia has had quite the season over there at Vandy this year. Really a great story. He was opening it up to JUCO players getting an extra year of eligibility because he played a couple years at JUCO, and then um, and then he had 2 years at New Mexico State, and then he's now in his second and final year at Vanderbilt. And Kirk Ferentz talked about Diego Pavia opening up the door for Caden Weechin to have another year because of the JUCO rule, and so he was very appreciative of Diego Pavia's, you know, his fight with the NCAA to get the extra year for those JUCO players, and so it'll be his last game. It'll be Cade Weechin's last game in college, so kind of a fun parallel right there. But Diego Pavia this year was, I mean, truly special. He completed just over 71% of his passes, about 3,200 passing yards, 27 touchdowns to 8 picks. Also ran for 826 yards and another 9 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, that's the reason he's in New York for the Heisman ceremony. Like he's really good. I don't think he's going to win. I do think that Fernando Mendoza is going to end up winning that award. But nonetheless, Iowa is going to be facing oh my goodness gracious, a Heisman Trophy finalist. Bear with me here, folks. Bear with me. It's we're into the off season, but it'll be Diego Pavia most likely playing for Vanderbilt along with Eli Stowers. So a great test for this Iowa defense. A lot of senior guys playing their last game, and Kirk Ferentz did mention that he doesn't expect there to be any opt-outs right now. That could change. It's still 3 weeks or so until the game, and so plenty of opportunities for players to opt out if they choose. But as of now, Kirk Ferentz did say that he does not expect any players to opt out. So we're going to be seeing, that senior defensive line, Graves, Herkett, Llewellyn, Pace out there trying to get pressure on Diego Pavia. We're hopefully going to see TJ Hall back in the lineup, and those senior linebackers too, and Carson Shire, Jaden Harrell, and of course X in the back line too. But I'm really excited to see just some of these young guys too get a chance. I wonder if they try and mix in Rashad Godfrey a bit more, even if TJ Hall is back and healthy and good to go. Same with Jalen Watson. Same with like a Jaden Montgomery at middle linebacker. A couple of guys that are going to be on that roster next year. This is a great opportunity for them to play a really quality opponent and get some great reps before they break for a little bit prior to spring practices. But it's going to be a really fun game, I think. I'm excited to see how the Iowa offense looks against a pretty decent Vanderbilt defense. Mark Gronowski, obviously his last collegiate game. I think he's going to leave it all out there on the field. Same with the offensive line, who are Joe Moore Award finalists. How about that for this unit? I don't mean to keep going on these side tangents, but George Barnett deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with that group of players. If you remember, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 4 years ago, Iowa's offensive line was a serious problem. Like it was Tyler Linderbaum in the middle and a lot of question marks. And the rebuild that George Barnett has done in the trenches is nothing sort of remarkable. Going from how bad things were just a few years ago to this group being a Joe Moore Award finalist, joined by Indiana and I believe Oregon. Is Oregon the other team? I think that they are. It's truly incredible what they've done with that group. And even though that they're losing a Logan Jones and a Jennings Dunker and a Bo Stevens, like expect this group to still be good next year. Cade Pieper, I think, is really going to establish himself as an NFL talent next year. A Trevor Lauk for their at left tackle is going to keep getting better. Jack Dotzler can return to be probably your right tackle. I think there's a lot to like with that group. Leighton Jones, probably your left guard. A lot to like with that group and their development. George Barnett deserves a ton of credit for the work that he's done with that group. It's going to be their last time to play at Iowa for Jones and Dunker and Stevens. So really, really curious to see how they look there. And I think Cade Weechin's got one more special play in him if I had to guess. In his last collegiate game, he returned a kick for a touchdown against Missouri in Iowa's bowl game last year. Would not shock me one bit if he finds the end zone again in this bowl game. But the big thing for me is just being able to see Adego Pavia play in this bowl game. Same with Eli Stowers. It's really awesome, and Iowa with no opt-outs too. Recently bowl games have kind of felt like they've lost a bit of their luster because you have coaches leaving, you have players leaving, you have players going to the NFL, players transferring, players just flat out sitting out, and you have teams that are just refusing to play in bowl games. Notre Dame, excuse me. But you have these teams and players that just don't want to play in these bowl games, and it sucks because the bowl games I think they're fun for the fans. I really do. Like, you get 2.5, 3 weeks straight of just straight football and these matchups that you wouldn't really expect, and teams that never play each other but get to match up on the gridiron. And some of these bowl games can be really, really good football. Like, you'll get a random bowl game like a 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and it'll be, UAB and like Toledo playing, and they'll just drop the most like incredible football game you've ever seen. Like, that's why I love bowl season. And unfortunately, like, we've seen a lot of these bowl games kind of lose their magic these last couple of years because players who don't make the playoffs are opting out or going to the NFL, or coaches are leaving and players don't want to play because the coach is gone. A lot of things going on. So it's really refreshing to see a pair of teams here that looks like they're going to have most of their players available for this bowl game, and to see star players on star players. It's great for the game. It's great for the development of these two rosters, especially those young players who are coming back next year. I just think it's great, and I was really happy to hear that from Clark Lee and from Kirk Ferentz that looks like their rosters are going to be good to go for this bowl game in the ReliaQuest Bowl, New Year's Eve at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. I believe it's on ESPN, if I'm not mistaken. But should be a really fun matchup there. I'll have more of a preview of that Vanderbilt game on next Thursday's show when I have a bit more time to kind of dive deep into the Commodores and what they do well, where some areas that maybe Iowa can exploit to try and win this game and break that ranked losing streak. So next week's show will be a bigger Vanderbilt preview show. So I'm really excited to get into that. But yeah, really, really pumped for this bowl game. Also really excited about this Iowa recruiting class that was officially signed last week on signing day. Iowa with 18 players who signed letters of intent. And their class, according to 247 Sports, is the 28th overall best class in the entire country. I'm going to pull up the page here. This is 247 Sports. They do fantastic work with coverage of Iowa recruiting of all the sports. So make sure that you're giving them a follow and checking out their work. But this is their page right here. Iowa's 2026 football commits. 18 commits have officially signed on to play at Iowa. And 247 Sports has Iowa with 7 4-stars in the class, led by Darian Jones, the corner from Omaha. They have him as a 4-star with the 105th best player or best prospect in the entire country. Of course, Trayden Bessinger, the 4-star quarterback, the former Boise State commit, who's now at Iowa, the 185th best player in the country. Carson Nielsen, the 4-star tackle from Waterloo, is the 25th best tackle in the class. Marcelo Vitti, the safety/athlete, is a 4-star. He's the 21st best at that safety position in the country. Gene Riordan is an interior offensive lineman from Hinsdale, Illinois. He's the 23rd best player in the country at his position. Kason Thomas is that 4-star linebacker from Sioux City, the 23rd best position or player at his position. And Julian Manson, also a 4-star linebacker, the 24th best player at his position from right there in Iowa City. So Kirk Ferentz and crew really capping off an impressive recruiting class. 18 total recruits with with almost half of them being 4 stars. Is pretty impressive for Iowa. Rounding out the group, Hudson Parliament, a 3-star defensive lineman. Colin Witters, a 3-star interior offensive lineman. Luke Brewer, a 3-star tight end. Brody Schaefer, a 3-star wide receiver. Owen Linder, a 3-star offensive tackle. Billy Wevoda, a 3-star linebacker. Ronnie Hill, a 3-star safety. Jack Janda, a 3-star defensive lineman. Xavier Stinson, a 3-star wide receiver. Excuse me. Sawyer Jezierski, a 3-star defensive lineman, and DeAndre Smith, a 3-star wide receiver. Just want to make sure I got that name right there. Iowa's recruiting class looking mighty impressive, and what they've been able to do, attacking a wide range of positions. We got quarterbacks, we got multiple players in the trenches, some linebackers, some secondary help. A lot of great things to enjoy from that group. No running backs in this class, which makes sense. Iowa does have a nice, healthy stable of backs returning next year. Kamari Bolton's going to be a junior. You're going to have Jazz Patterson back as a senior. Terrell Washington will be a junior. Xavier Williams will be a sophomore. Nathan McNeil will be a sophomore. So it's still a pretty young group of guys right there, assuming no one transfers. And so it's good to see. It's good to see depth there for Iowa, but the recruiting class, very impressive. And it's times like this that you really appreciate Iowa not having to go through this coaching carousel, having a consistent coach in Kirk Ferentz, because we're seeing schools like across the country lose coaches and then lose recruits. The recruiting classes go off the rails, and all of a sudden you're set back a year or two because of it. Iowa's never had to worry about that. And they're getting pretty consistent classes in here, which is great to see. The transfer portal. Iowa is going to be looking at some guys in the portal. And they've already offered a couple. There was a West Florida wide receiver, which is a Division II school. A West Florida wide receiver that Iowa offered yesterday, along with they're in the running for that quarterback from West Florida as well. The transfer portal does not officially open until January 2nd. But Iowa is going to be going in there and starting to map out their plans for the transfer portal. And I think it's very interesting to see and then to talk about where should Iowa go in the portal. Because there's a couple different ways you can go about this. And I'll start, let's address the elephant in the room, the quarterback position. Mark Gronowski is gone. He's graduating. What does Iowa do? I talked about this a bit on the show last week with T. Hink and with Kelvin Fisher about, what does Iowa do at the quarterback room? Do you stand pat and bring back Hank Brown and Jeremy Heklinski and in that group and just kind of see if one of those two guys can emerge as your quarterback? Or do you go out and try and get someone in the portal? And I think there's pros and cons to both. Looking at the in-house options, Hank Brown, Jeremy Heklinski, they're going to be a junior and sophomore respectively next year. So if you can develop one of them, you're going to have them for at least a couple years, which is good because Iowa's been looking for that next multi-year starting quarterback for a while. And this guy's I know the system. They're very familiar with Tim Lester and the kind of offense that he likes to run. So there's going to be a lot of familiarity there, and that's something that matters to this coaching staff. It really does. You talked about Mark Gronowski. With his injury, he had to, take some time to learn the playbook and to learn the system. And we saw Iowa's offense in the first month kind of struggle to get off the ground because of that. And so I think Iowa really prefers if they can have guys who've been in the system learning things for a while. And Hank Brown and Jeremy Heklinski would both have 1 year of experience in the Tim Lester system. And we saw them both in very limited, very sparse action in 2025. I don't know. Nothing about either one jumped off the page for me. you'll see some reps from guys sometimes in limited action and be like, whoa, like I know it's a small sample size, but like I really like what I saw there. And you know, I didn't see anything crazy from Hank Brown or Jeremy Hecklinski in their limit. And it was very limited action. Like Hank Brown got in, like his big moment was the Indiana game where he was thrown in the fourth quarter of a tie game and said, "Hey, win the game." Like insanely tough ask for a young kid like that. Jeremy Hecklinski was just garbage time. Really against Minnesota was his big experience, and he ran for a touchdown, which was great. But it's hard to judge. But I didn't see anything super crazy, and I know Iowa wasn't opening up the playbook, and they're playing very conservative with those when those guys were in. But still, I didn't see anything wild that I thought Iowa had something special with either of those guys, and maybe I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong about that. So I think the portal could be an interesting option. Iowa's not going to be a player for a big name starting quarterback until they continue to prove that the quarterback position at Iowa is a healthy step for prospective transfer QBs. And right now it's just not. They don't throw enough. If you're a transfer quarterback and you want to go somewhere else where you could put up better stats and be able to show off your skills a bit more to potentially, have NFL teams interested, Iowa's just not the school for that. So Iowa's not going to be a big name player for, quarterback X or quarterback Y that enters the portal. It's just not going to happen. And so, like, do you want to go back to that second tier of the portal and get a Mark Gronowski type of player, or maybe a smaller, like maybe an FCS school, or maybe like a mid-major school that you think that you might be able to develop, or do you trust your guys, Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski? I tend to lean towards Iowa trusting their guys. I would be surprised if they add a bigger name at the quarterback room. They might add that like West Florida quarterback, the Division II transfer, but I'd be surprised if it's anything super crazy and out of the ordinary in that quarterback room. I think we're going to see Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski battling it out in spring practice and over the summer to see who starts next fall. Other positions of need in the portal: wide receiver, 100%. You're losing four guys: Gill, Weetson, Anderson, and Sam Phillips. So you're going to, is Sam Phillips he's a senior. I'm pretty sure Sam Phillips is a senior. Yes, he is. Okay. There was a depth chart earlier this year that listed him as a junior by accident. So I always get that in my head. But yes, you're losing four receivers, and you're bringing back Reese Vanderbilt. You're bringing back Dayton Howard. I think Jarriett Bowie is going to transfer probably. His situation was always kind of weird this year, where he got hurt before the season started, and then he was out the entire year. We never heard an injury update. I think Kirk Ferentz mentioned him by name one time. It was pretty early in the year. He said, yeah, he's going to be out for a while. There's no reports. There's no insiders talking about him. Like, Jarriett Bowie has kind of been a ghost this entire season. And I don't know if he's just trying to slide out the back door, go somewhere else. I would be surprised if he's back at Iowa. And I have I'm not reporting anything. I'm just giving my opinion that I think Jarriett Bowie is probably going to be in a different uniform next year, just with kind of just reading the tea leaves on how things went down with his situation this year, and with the injury being out all year, not hearing anything from Kirk Ferentz, nothing from Tim Lester, nothing from reporters or insiders. It just seems kind of weird to me. So I think he's probably gone. So you bring back Reese Vanderbilt and Dayton Howard, but you need some more options in that room and some more depth for sure, especially with the Reese Vanderbilt who's been hurt each of his first 2 years on campus. We see how good he is when he's healthy, but you need some depth in that room. And we saw Iowa offer that West Florida Division II transfer wide receiver. Chase Scott, I believe, was his name. But there's a lot to be excited about with there. And it's Corey Scott, excuse me. the West Florida wide receiver Corey Scott, Iowa offered yesterday. Where do they go with that? I think that's really interesting. Expect to see a couple wide receivers added in that room. Tight end, I think you're fine there. Same with running back. I love the options there. DJ Banami back for another year as Ostrenga returning from injury. A Thomas Meyer in that tight end room. Love that room. Talked about the running backs earlier. They're going to be in a good spot. Offensive line, I don't see anything too crazy. I think if there's a move on the offensive line, it'll be for someone like a Bryce George from this past year who didn't end up playing. But, more of a depth move, if I had to guess. Iowa's pretty set at about 4 of the 5 positions next year. You feel good about Lauk, Leighton Jones, Cade Pieper, and probably Jack Dochler. Maybe even Cannon Leonard over at right tackle. They're going to have to figure out the center spot with Logan Jones leaving. I believe Michael Myslinski was his backup. I believe he's a senior as well, or is he a junior? I'm checking right now. But Michael Myslinski, or is he a lot? He's a senior as well, so Iowa is going to have to figure out their center spot for next year. But I think you feel pretty decent overall about the offensive line and the depth that you have there. You're bringing in some nice talent as well. So I wouldn't expect a huge move on the offensive line. Maybe a depth signing or two for sure, but nothing crazy. Defensive line, I think, is where Iowa could go to work in the transfer portal because you're losing a lot. You are losing a lot on that line. Graves, Herkett, Llewellyn, Pace, all gone. Like your entire starting defensive line is gone. They're all seniors, and so but there's still a couple of nice names returning next year on that defensive line. There's Brian Allen has another year, so he will be he'll be back next year on the defensive line, which is exciting. Bryce Hawthorne is back next year. I thought that he flashed in his snaps that he was given this year, so I'm excited about that. Will Hubert's back next year. Ayosa Epenesa, of course, the 5-star freshman who I played a tad bit. He'll be in a more prominent role next year. But I was losing a lot. Jeremiah Pittman is graduating as well, in addition to those other guys that I mentioned. And so, going to have to rely on some of those younger guys. Like Kenneth Merriweather is returning, which is nice. Luke Gaffney, who's able to get some depth roles this year. But Iowa is pretty thin on, a lot of guys on that D line who have played a lot. And you always want to have depth on the D line more than any other position in football. Having depth on your D line is insanely important because you're rotating those guys out constantly to make sure that you have fresh legs. And so I would totally expect Iowa to go out into the portal and add at least 2, maybe even 3 defensive linemen, defensive ends to help out with the depth there. Probably some impact players as well, like a Jonah Pace, because Iowa's losing a lot. They're losing a lot there, but I think expect them to go into the portal for some guys on the D line. Linebackers, you're losing Carson Shire, you're losing Jackson Rexroth, and you're losing Jaden Harrell. I do like Jaden Montgomery quite a bit. He's coming back for his senior year. Cam Buffington, the redshirt freshman, I said to not sleep on him. Excited what he can do. With some more snaps next year. Landon Van Kekerix is a guy that I was very excited about. He'll be a senior next year. I expect some more playing time for him. Nolan DeLong could see an uptick in playing time. He'll be a junior next year. Preston Reese was a redshirt freshman this year. He flashed on special teams a lot, making a ton of tackles. And any coach will tell you, if you want more snaps on either side of the ball, make impact plays on special teams. Preston Reese has done that all season long. I would very much expect him to be involved in some capacity with the defense next year, whether it's as a most likely beginning the season as a backup, but I'm excited about what he can do going forward. So maybe you add a name in the linebacker room, but I think they're going to trust Montgomery, and Ben Kekerich and Buffington with Reese adding some depth there. So I think you feel pretty decent about that, but I would not mind adding another name in that linebacker room as well, because again, you want depth there too. The DBs. This is where things get very interesting because you're losing Xavier Wampa. You are losing TJ Hall. Those guys are seniors. They're gone. We don't know, and you're also losing Shaheed Barrows, who I know kind of got lost in the shuffle this year, the South Dakota transfer. He was a graduate. He didn't get to play a whole lot this year, but he is going to be gone next year. So, where does Iowa go from there with that group? I think a lot of things hinge on Cohen Entringer, who is eligible to return next year. He would be a senior. But he might be testing NFL waters. And if he gets some good reports there, there's a chance that he heads off to the league. And so you have to replace another starter in that DB room. And I think if Cohen Entringer leaves, then Iowa might get a bit more aggressive in the DB transfer portal. But for right now, I think they like what they're bringing back. Assuming that you bring back Cohen Entringer, it's going to be Deshaun Lee back. You're going to have Zach Lutmer back. You're going to have Jalen Watson back. Rashad Godfrey, who I thought was really impressive against Nebraska. Jacob Wallace is our freshman this year that made some plays. Akil Kolaric will be a senior next year, someone who I know Josh was excited about when we talked about that on the show. So I think you have some nice depth there as well. Watts McBride, Alante Dean was a true freshman this year who I was excited about. Alex Moda, a sophomore. So there's a lot of names there that I think Iowa feels comfortable with. So if Cohen Entringer stays, I think Iowa mostly stays put in terms of the transfer portal for their DBs. If Cohen Entringer heads off to the NFL, or if you get an unexpected transfer or two from that room, I would expect Iowa to maybe go in for a name. But right now, I don't see too much. Special teams. Reese Dakin is back next year. Drew Stevens, of course, is gone. And so Iowa's going to have to figure out where they want to go with kicker. I think the answer is probably on the roster. With that kicker spot, I don't think Iowa's going to hit the portal for that. The return position, obviously with Caden Weechin gone, I think Iowa's going to turn in-house for that. They mentioned Zach Lutmer as someone who could do that, as well as a couple of other names to keep an eye on that I know LeVar Woods was very excited about. And so I wouldn't expect Iowa to go out of the program for the answer at that return position. Jackson Nave is going to be a junior next year. That's someone else that Iowa is really excited about as a return man. So expect Iowa to stay in-house with the special teams. So overall, I think you could go for a quarterback. I don't think Iowa's going to do it. I think you're going to add a couple of wide receivers, maybe some depth on the offensive line, a few defensive linemen, and then potentially a linebacker or DB, depending on what happens with in-house transfers or with people going to the NFL. It's going to be a fun transfer portal window for the Hawks, and to see what they add to this program and to a 2026 roster. I think it's going to be pretty damn good next year for Iowa. I'm excited about that. Of course, we'll be covering all of that offseason news and whatnot as we get into the official transfer portal and get some more news there. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some Big Ten coaching carousel moves. What is going on up in Ann Arbor? Penn State makes some big moves. What does it mean for Iowa? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about all of that right after this.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel, go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the voice of college football.
And thank you to Mark Rogers for that. This is Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football. It is our call-in show tonight. That link is in the chat for anyone who wants to hop on and talk about the Hawks or some of the Big Ten drama. We got my man Kelvin Fisher in the chat. Appreciate you tuning in. Kelvin T. Hink as well, hopping in with a howdy, Zach, and more in deep waters. Yes, we will get to that in just a few minutes here. T. Hink, Michigan. Ooh, that situation just keeps getting worse. So, as well as Cyhawk C Money in the chat. I thank you for tuning in and being here for the show, Cyhawk C Money. I really appreciate it. Let's start with Penn State over in Happy Valley. Those fans are pretty happy now because they finally have their head coach after miss after miss after miss, striking out on a lot of their other options. Penn State has finally hired their next head coach, and Iowa fans are very familiar with this person. Matt Campbell is officially hired as the next head football coach at Penn State. Of course, Matt Campbell has spent the previous decade up in Ames at Iowa State, rebuilding that program, doing a damn good job of it too, taking an Iowa State football program that was kind of a laughingstock for a while and turning them into a consistent threat in the Big 12. He departs Ames to head to Penn State, and there's two different sides of this to look at for Iowa. Of course, with the Cyhawk game, Matt Campbell is gone. I assume a lot of his players from Iowa State who aren't graduating will follow. The biggest domino there, of course, is Rocco Becht, the quarterback who has one more year of eligibility. Does he go with Matt Campbell to Happy Valley? I don't think Penn State has, a quarterback returning that they're super excited about. I know that Ethan Gronkmeyer played some decent football down the stretch, but he's not a Matt Campbell guy. I think Rocco Becht will join him eventually in Happy Valley. But we'll see who else goes with him. So that's that Cyhawk game in Iowa City next year. Who's going to be left for Iowa State? They hired Jimmy Rogers, the former Washington State head coach, which I think is a pretty good hire for Iowa State. But that'll be very early in his season. He's going to be scrambling to put together a recruiting class and to keep recruits committed and working in the transfer portal. Iowa's got to take care of business there against Iowa State next year in Kinnick with all of those changes to the Cyclone program. That's got to be a game that Iowa wins. You can't lose to a team with a new coach and potentially a new quarterback and a new roster at home. That's got to be a win for Iowa. But Matt Campbell is a really good coach. I think Iowa fans are kind of breathing a sigh of relief that he's out of the program there. We'll see what happens to Iowa State in that program. I'm very curious to see how Jimmy Rogers, handles that pressure. And then, of course, it affects Iowa within the Big Ten Conference because Penn State has a really good head coach, I think. I think Matt Campbell is a great hire. If you're going to miss out on that top tier, on that Kurt Cignetti tier, I think Matt Campbell is a really good candidate to end up choosing to be your head coach. He's a program developer. And right now, Penn State, I think it's some fresh life that the fan base really wants and really needs. Matt Campbell is a guy that, says the right things a lot to the media and shows up. He's very active in the athletics department. He'll go to other sporting events and, is really, he's a genuinely just a good guy. I think Penn State really needs that right now in that program. This is a good hire for them. Matt Campbell is going to do some good things over there in Happy Valley. Iowa not scheduled to play Penn State again until 2028. And so it'll be a couple, unless, of course, they meet in the Big Ten title game, which I would love to see. But it'll be a few years until Iowa does see a Matt Campbell-led Penn State team. But big news there for the Big Ten as Penn State finds their next head coach. A team looking for a head coach that you didn't think would be in the coaching carousel is Michigan. And my goodness, I mean, this story went from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye yesterday. So we got news yesterday mid-afternoon or so that Michigan was firing Sharon Moore. And at the time, people were shocked. Like, Sharon Moore he just won 9 games. The year before that, he'd beaten Ohio State. I think won 10 games. He was recruiting well. He was Jim Harbaugh's preferred candidate to replace him at Michigan. And so I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be there for a while. And so when Michigan fires him, it's like, whoa, that's a premier job that opens up. And so Sharon Moore gets fired. And then the news just starts trickling in throughout the rest of the afternoon and into the evening hours with Sharon Moore. There were reports came out that he had an inappropriate relationship with a staff member, and then there were reports that he was in police custody and he was arrested, and then there were reports that he had gotten the staff member pregnant and that he had threatened her life. And then, I mean, it just kept snowballing over. Like, it just got every single update. It got even worse for Sharon Moore. The latest update, he is going to appear in court tomorrow. But I mean, just insane turn of events right there for Michigan, who was a win away from making the college football playoff 2 weeks ago. And now they're looking for a new head coach because their old head coach had inappropriate relationship with a staff member and threatened her. I mean, just absolutely insane stuff going on there in Michigan. Iowa is set to play Michigan at the Big House next year. What's that team going to look like? Who's the head coach? Who do you even get this late in the cycle? I feel like a lot of the big names have either signed extensions or they've already found their new job. And so where does Michigan go with that? So actually, mine says ESPN saying that Michigan should entertain Matt Campbell if the ink isn't dry. Wouldn't that be something? I think Matt Campbell is going to be at Penn State. But I mean, in this day and age of college football, you never really know, do you? You never really know until a coach shows up for a spring practice and until they're on the sidelines for that week 1 game. And so we'll see what happens there. Skyler, why do people care if he's dogging some fresh tang? LOL. It's a bad situation up there in Ann Arbor. So actually, money says there's a conflict of interest, a significant pay raises for her written in the contract. Yeah, it's not good. It's a really bad situation up there. In Ann Arbor, he was fired rightfully, and we'll see where the situation goes with him in court. But Michigan looking for a new head coach. Penn State has a new head coach. Iowa State with a new head coach. Lots going on that coaching site carousel. Iowa not on the ride, and I'm thankful for that Kirk Ferentz has been consistent, and he's coming back next year to coach the Hawkeyes. Let's bring on a fan favorite now, T. Hink, to talk about, I mean, whatever you want to talk about, T. Hink. I'm excited to have you on. There's a lot to talk about. We lost him here for a second. We're going to bring him on, though, here soon to chat about Iowa's bowl game, Iowa's recruiting class potentially, the Big Ten coaching carousel with Matt Campbell, and at Penn State, Michigan firing Sharon Moore. Hopefully we can get T. Hink back on here after some technical difficulties. So actually, Money says ESPN also said that they should go after Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. I also heard that report, and I think that's very interesting. Kalen DeBoer kind of feels like he's walking on eggshells down there in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it's insanely difficult to try and replace Nick Saban. And Kalen DeBoer is doing his best right now, but it's easy to tell that he's not super popular among Alabama fans because their expectations are so high with Nick Saban that if Kalen DeBoer is not instantly winning national championships, like he's not going to be beloved in Tuscaloosa. So maybe he sees the writing on the wall and wants to go up to Michigan, a place that might have a bit more patience with him. Michigan needs a coach that is going to settle things down. I think Matt Campbell, if they had gotten to him first, would have been a fantastic candidate for Michigan. They need a head coach that can settle things down, a head coach that can put you back in the good graces of your fan base and back in the good graces of college football. Because Michigan, I mean, you think about the last decade with the cheating scandal and the Connor Stallion stuff and the Jim Harbaugh era, and ended up, ending on a weird note. He was suspended, and then now the Sharon Moore stuff. He was suspended for some stuff, and then now he's been fired. Like Michigan has just been kind of a tire fire of a program off the field. They've had a lot of on the field success, obviously winning a national title a few years ago, but off the field, it's just been a complete mess for Michigan, and they just need an adult in the room. Michigan needs an adult in the room right now. They kind of settle things down, at least for a few years. Obviously, you want to win. Obviously, you want to be successful, but you need to bring someone in right now who is going to rebuild your brand, who's going to rebuild your public perception, because Michigan football, their perception right now is not very positive. And so maybe it's Kalen DeBoer. I don't know. But whoever that is for Michigan, they've got to get things figured out. They have got to get things settled down within that program, because it's a mess right now. It's a complete mess with what's been going on with that coaching stuff, suspensions and firings. I saw actually mine says Michigan used Brady Hoke to do that for a while. And yeah, Brady Hoke didn't have the success that Michigan fans wanted, but he did kind of settle down that program, and now they're back to being kind of out of control off the field. Also chiming in, actually, Monty Michigan had an athletic physician that brought major setbacks as well. I'm not familiar with that story, but it wouldn't surprise me with this program right now. Just with everything that's going on, it's a mess. It's a complete mess, and so Michigan needs to get this head coaching hire figured out, because this thing could spiral even further off the tracks if they get it wrong. So maybe it is Kalen DeBoer. Maybe it is. I don't know. Michigan is a mess right now. They got to get things figured out up there in Ann Arbor. We're bringing T. Hink back on. Hopefully he's got that internet situation figured out here. There he is, hopping on here. T. Hink, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Computer's having some serious issues right now, so hopefully everyone can hear myself. But we're hanging in there. We're 10 minutes till the Cyhawk game and Ames, so looking forward to that. Don't have much expectations going into that game. I just hope we don't get boat raced, but
yeah, keep it close.
Keep it close is right. It'll help the net either if we keep it close or win the game. So not much to pick from that game, but what a whirlwind of a week so far in college athletics. We got the Sharon Moore fallout dramatic conclusion, man. I don't know how the AD still has a job there. It sounds like they're bringing him back, but
yeah, that's bad.
I don't know. I don't know who they bring in. I don't know if Kalen DeBoer goes there, to be honest with you. I think he just wants to stay at Alabama. But
yeah.
I guess what thoughts do you have for myself? Let's answer anything. Chat has anything? But
yeah. So I mean, we talked about a lot on the show tonight. Iowa's bowl game against Vanderbilt. Talked about my excitement for that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game.
For that matchup.
One of the bowls that I'm probably honestly excited for since bowl season's taken over and the playoffs started.
Yep.
especially if Vanderbilt doesn't have any opt-outs. Like, doesn't sound like they're going to have any opt-outs, and it sounds like the Diego Pavia is going to play. Sounds like he's trying to go for another year of eligibility, is what I've been hearing on some local radio shows. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic goes down.
He wants that Heisman Trophy bad. I think Fernando Mendoza is going to win the Heisman this year, and rightfully so. He won the AP Player of the Year, which is kind of a good indication of where some of those voters are going to be at with him. But it's awesome. I talked about it earlier. Very awesome that Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers are probably going to play in this bowl game. It's going to be a great test for Iowa and for Phil Parker's defense, who Iowa is going to have everyone playing as well in the bowl game. So I'm excited about that. As we have Saxy money here. Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham mentioned as well for Michigan.
Yeah,
I could see that as well. He also says, does Iowa have the Heisman quarterback under wraps? I mean, Iowa played Fernando Mendoza the best of any team this season so far. I think they really kept him in check in that game. That's still a game that is super frustrating because, man, like Iowa arguably should have won and beaten the number one team in the country, a team that could win a national title. And Iowa was this close, but that's just the story of the 2025 season, unfortunately. But I mean, what are your thoughts on Kenny Dillingham to Michigan? And what do you think? What do you think this means for the matchup next year? Iowa going to Ann Arbor to play the Wolverines. Do you feel better about Iowa's chances now going into the Big House and getting a win now that there's all this drama?
Yeah, I think Michigan's in deep trouble. I don't buy into them getting a big time coach this year. I think it's late in the process unless they really poach somebody that's like a Kalen DeBoer. But I feel like if you hire a Jed Fish, I feel like he needs a year under his belt to get the players he's going to want, because I'm pretty sure he's going to go air raid because that's what they run at Washington.
Yep.
And Michigan, I think, is more pro style. We saw what they did under Brady Hogue. That was a complete flop. Yep. So I think if they do get somebody like a Jed Fish, I think they're going to be a year away. I do believe Bryce Underwood is gone. I don't know if you buy into it, but he removed all of his Michigan ats on his Instagram bio today or yesterday. So I don't know if you buy much into that, but it sounds like he's out the door. It doesn't sound like in his contract that they put a buyout on him. So they were crazy enough. Michigan was crazy enough to buy the quarterback with about whatever he cost. Surprised he didn't put a buyout contract in his clause. But yeah,
$10 million. That's actually money. He says. I think he's gone. I think he's gone. I think if they bring in Jed Fish, keep an eye on DeMond Williams, the Washington quarterback coming with him to Michigan. If they bring in Kenny Dillingham, keep an eye on Sam Levitt potentially coming with him to Michigan. So I think that Bryce Underwood is gone. I know we had a commenter earlier ask if Iowa should be in on Bryce Underwood this offseason. I don't think there's any
chance.
Unfortunately. I don't think Iowa can afford him, unfortunately, with that $10 million price tag. We
couldn't even come close to being able to afford him, and I don't even know if I'd even want him, to be honest with you. I feel like he'd be like a Cade McNamara, because he has top end receivers at Michigan. He doesn't have that at Iowa, so he's kind of like fending for himself. So I mean, he'd be great, but I don't think the best bet for Iowa to get a QB at a higher level to come down to Iowa's scope. I feel like if we're going to get a quarterback, I feel it needs to be like a Mark Gronowski, where they're going up a level instead of down a level.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Transfer portal for Iowa. I talked about kind of my positions of need. I think for them at wide receiver, on the D line, adding some depth at offensive line and DB and linebacker rooms. Where do you think Iowa is going to end up attacking the transfer portal at?
Personally, I think they need to do some receivers. They need to get some defensive linemen, because I think it's key to have 10 guys, 10 or 8 to 9, 10 guys deep on the D line to rotate them out. Receivers a must. Need to have some, because they would lose like 4 guys to graduation. Defensive back, maybe. I'm kind of content with who we have, because Deshaun Lee's back this coming year, and then we have Rashad Goffrey, and I was kind of honestly surprised on how well he did against Nebraska. So I think he could. I think we're good at there. It really depends on safety too, because I really want Cohen to come back because Cohen would be pretty good for his senior year, and then you got Zach Lutmer's back, which the defense in the back end isn't bad if those players come back. We just got to load up on the portal and on the defensive line because I think the linebackers are studs. They'll be fine. I think with another year under their belt, or 2 years I think now since they came in a year ago. My concern is it sounds like Iowa's going after a quarterback in the portal.
Yeah, I saw that the West Florida quarterback, the D2 kid, Iowa was in on him. I haven't heard about any other names right now that they've might be in on, but I mean, it's the big debate right now. Like, do you bring in another transfer quarterback, or do you trust Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski in their second year in Tim Lester's system to kind of take over the reins?
Well, I was talking to Kelvin yesterday, and Kelvin said that he thinks Hank Brown's going to end up leaving. But I heard from another reporter
Wouldn't surprise me.
Hank Brown was tearing it up in the last 2 practices, but Hecklinski's been out due to an illness, so I don't know what's going on and behind the scenes. But I've said it from the beginning since Hecklinski jumped around. I think Hecklinski should start next year. I think he should be the guy. I think we should save the money and go get some receivers and some maybe offensive line. I mean, we have enough offensive line with the guys we have coming back. You have Maslinski, Pieper, Lauk, and I think Leighton Jones is going to take a step forward next year. So it would be nice to have a depth piece, probably O-line, but I feel pretty confident with what we have on the roster for O-line. So I would think receiver and defensive line is our must.
Yeah.
Wise.
I'm with you there. I think that the DB room potentially they could look to get a bit younger there, or to keep adding youth in that room, because next year, if Cohen Engineer returns, you're going to have him as a senior, Deshaun Lee as a senior, Zach Lutmer will be a junior, but I think he's NFL bound after next year. I think Zach Lutmer is really going to take another step forward next year and be a draft pick. And so you're going to be looking for more depth in 2027 eventually, but that's way too far in the future to worry about right now. I do think receivers, D-line is probably where you start, and then you see what you do with the quarterback room. So actually, maybe no chance Caden Wheaton returns to continue Iowa's All-American streak. No, unfortunately not. I know that Diego Pavia is fighting for another year of eligibility, but I think Caden Wheaton is really going to give it his best shot to stick to an NFL roster. I think he easily could as a return specialist. I mean, you see NFL teams all the time. They'll dress 6 wide receivers, but they never play that 6 wide receiver. He's usually a special teams guy, or a return man, a gunner, things like that. I think Caden Wheaton could definitely find a role in that kind of space on an NFL team next year. I mean, he's an electric return man, and field position matters so much in football. And so I'd be surprised if he doesn't get at least like a preseason shot with the team to try and make the roster. But I think he's off to the NFL, and rightfully so. He's one of the best return men.
I have a couple more things here, and I'm going to hop off, turning the game on for basketball. But punt return, I think we go to, if Weegen's gone, I'm going to go to Brevin Dahl. I feel like he's a good guy to throw back there on punts and kickoffs. And I don't know. I feel like I can't wait for the portal. I love this time of year. I know a lot of people don't like the portal, but I kind of enjoy it because it's free agent season. And I love going around and looking at the coaches who they're following. I'm just the only person that does that, but it's always fun to free agent and shop around for some players.
Yeah.
But 7 o'clock, hopefully Iowa pulls off the upset tonight, and hopefully it's a Hawkeye State. So
yeah. I mean, we need Iowa to get a win here. Hopefully I try and salvage that Cyhawk series this year. It's going to be a tall task, but who knows? Yep. Maybe Ben McCollum's got his first signature moment in him tonight with this team, and we'll see. Iowa's played Iowa State tough on the road before, and I mean, keep your expectations low if you're Iowa fans. But
I am. No expectations for me. Just pull the victory off, and that's all I care about. So we'll talk to everybody next week.
Mindset.
And, go Hawks, everyone.
Appreciate it, T. Thank you for hopping on, my friend. It is about 7 o'clock with that Cyhawk game tipping off here soon. So I'll begin to wrap things up. Kelvin Fisher says, I don't think Hank Brown is leaving. I think he's going to stay as well. So actually, money Joe Anderson, is a redshirt freshman defensive end. Could definitely see it an uptick in playing time, even if you believe in Joe Anderson, which I think he could be a solid player. Still want to add some more depth on that D line if you are Iowa, to make sure that you have enough guys to be able to go toe to toe with the elite Big Ten teams. But yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that transfer portal, and a lot going on in the world of Iowa athletics right now. It's 7:00, so I'm gonna hop off here so we can all flip over to the Cyhawk game. But thank you all for tuning in to Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. I'll be back next Thursday with a more in-depth preview of Vanderbilt, along with any other Iowa football news that comes out in the next week. Thank you all for tuning in to Iowa Primetime Live. My name is Zach Heine. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the game, and as always, go Hawks.